Chapter 4. The next week we did it again. Another walk, another long conversation. I felt that same spark, the quiet thrill of excitement, mixed with guilt, but also not. Not the kind of guilt I was raised to feel. This was something else. It was softer, like I was letting something good in for the first time in forever. Each time we met, I found myself looking forward to the next. I wasn't planning anything. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I was craving something. Not Gabe exactly, though through his presence felt like sunlight. I was craving myself. The version of me that used to laugh, sing, dance, explore, and dream. The girl I had folded away. The third time we were back at the beach, and Gabe suggested we climb a long set of stairs. So many stairs. It was like ascending into some secret realm. At the top were rustic old cabins tucked into trees. One of them was his. I stepped inside and it smelled like beach air, oranges, and cloves. It was filled with his artwork, bold colors, abstract shapes, coastal scenes. The kitchen doubled as an art studio. The living room held beanbag chairs, yoga mats, and guitars leaning against the wall. It looked like a tiny paradise built by someone who really knew how to live. The dogs settled in and started playing while Gabe said, "Hey, let's do some painting." I'd forgotten how to create. We painted flowers on canvas, not beautiful ones, but messy and spontaneous and full of joy. I saw his other paintings on the wall, and I knew mine didn't add to the art, but that wasn't the point. It wasn't about perfection. It was about being in the moment. Then when I noticed the guitars, he picked one up and started strumming and humming softly. I picked one up too, tentative at first, and we began to harmonize. Things I'd learned as a child came back. For the first time since I was a child, I felt alive, really deeply buzzing alive. No one watching, no one correcting, no one asking if I was being a good wife, a good woman, a good anything. Just two people making something, music, laughter, warmth. That day, as Jack and I drove home, I felt it in every cell of my body. This life I had been living, this cage of obligation and silence, it wasn't for me. I didn't want to go back to that suffocation. Another ray of light. Not a fire, not a rebellion, just a truth I could no longer unfeel. I bought a sketchbook and some paints and brushes, and I set them up downstairs, and I claimed a small corner of the house for myself. That oddly caused more of an argument than the actual art supplies did. Claiming space, that seemed to be the real offense. And it wasn't about the mess, it was about the message. I was becoming someone Gary no longer recognized, and maybe someone I didn't fully recognize either, but I liked her. I had more free time now, having given up Saturday family gatherings and completely stepping away from the post-service family meals. I even began to say I didn't feel well enough to attend church, skipping as often as I could without raising many alarms. Each little boundary became a shift, a soft rebellion, a quiet act of remembering who I was before the shoulds swallowed me whole. Gabe and I only communicated through email, no texts, no calls. Beach walk became our code for spending time together at the cabin. We painted, we sang, we learned new songs on the guitar, and it was innocent until it wasn't. Chapter 5. I knew it was happening. I could feel it coming. Still, I was shocked when it did, when Gabe kissed me. That first kiss sent me over the moon. I won't embarrass myself by describing the details, but we shared a romantic, beautiful moment. That said, Gabe was really clear about a boundary he had. We would never engage in the full act of a married couple. That was his rule, and I agreed. Everything but that. Still, I knew what we were doing was wrong. I knew he was married just as I was. But the passion that awakened in me, I didn't even know that part of me existed. It was like fireworks, obsession. And when I thought of him, I felt electric, lit from the inside out, and yet I was the mistress. I tried not to say the word in my head, mistress. It sounded so cruel and sharp. I didn't feel like a villain. I didn't wear red lipstick or plot seductions. I wasn't trying to destroy a family. I didn't even know how I got here, but here I was. And Gabe? Well, he was a cheater. I couldn't deny that either. And still, there was this connection between us that felt so real and so deep. It couldn't be reduced to something as cliche as an affair, could it? He never talked much about his wife, and I never asked about her, and he never asked about Gary either. We created a bubble, warm and creative, full of color and music and longing. I let myself live in it because the rest of my life felt so gray. He told me his wife and kids were going to Europe for a month and that he'd have more time for beach walks. I took a week off work, a full week just for us. I was swept up in it. Lust took over my logic. I began to imagine a life together, a home, a future, a fantasy nest we could build, just us and the dogs and the art. It had been months since I'd seen him in person, and that first day back at the beach, we walked and ate and painted and laughed, played like we always did, but I couldn't help myself. I wanted more, so much more. I wanted to show him we belonged together, that if we finally crossed that boundary line that he created, he'd finally see it, that he'd see me, the real me, the me that I didn't even know how to be until him. So I pushed, gently at first, then more insistently. He resisted, and then finally he gave in. We completed the act, and in my head, it was the start of everything, but in his, it was the end. Afterward, he lay still. He got up and went to the washroom, and when he came back, I could feel the shift like a slap. The air changed. The light dimmed. His face was so tight with anger. "You," he said, nearly shouting. "I told you no intercourse. You pushed and pushed until you got your way. I can't trust you now." I sat there stunned. Shame hit me like a wave. I hadn't meant to cross a line. I just wanted closeness. No, wait a minute. Yes, I did mean to cross that line. I wanted to be chosen. I thought that meant being wanted. I tried to explain, to fix it, to reach for the closeness we had, but he cut me off. "Get out," he said. When I hesitated, shattered, he added coldly, "Maybe I'll feel different next week. Just give me space." I left sobbing, not just weeping, full-bodied, gut-rushing sobs. I drove home in a fog, eyes raw, stomach twisted. And the worst part, I wasn't just crying over him. I was crying over myself, over the version of me who had let this happen, over the girl who used to believe in goodness and rules and doing things right. Now who was I? At home, I collapsed into my little art space and buried my face in the pillows. Jack curled up beside me, quiet and loyal as my witness. I stopped walking. I stopped going to yoga. Stopped eating. I moved into the spare room upstairs. I couldn't bear to sleep beside Gary, but I couldn't explain why. I was wrecked. Not just from the heartbreak, but from the shame, from the truth, from the silence I had to carry. How do you mourn someone no one even knows you loved? How do you fall apart over something you were never supposed to begin? Chapter 6. I felt sick all the time. The work drained me. I was an emotional mess. I couldn't function like I once did. I forgot names, misplaced files, lost my train of thought mid-sentence. I cried in the staff room bathroom more than once. Some days I felt like I was floating outside myself, watching a woman unravel from a polite distance. The church elders came to the house for an intervention. That's what they called it. A quiet sit-down with tea and scripture designed to bring me back into the fold. I sat in the chair like a ghost in my own skin, nodding at the right times and pretending to be touched by their concern. But inside, I was screaming. The family dropped in now and then with casseroles and soft-voiced prayers. Most of them thought it was about not getting pregnant. That was still the story. They'd sit beside me like they were offering comfort and say things like, "If God meant for you to have children, he would have given them to you by now. There's something else God has in store for you." The same message over and over, as if my sorrow only had one shape. I went to work, I smiled for the children, but I was running on fumes. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, rereading the last emails I sent to Gabe. Each one returned undelivered, mailbox unavailable, user not found. He was gone. Whether he blocked me or shut the account down, it was the same. I was cut off just like that. I thought about going to see him at his workplace. Him and his wife, they're both dentists. They co-own that big modern wellness complex in town with plants in the lobby and the waterfall wall. I drove there once. I sat in the parking lot, watched the door, hoping, dreading. But even if I had seen him, what would I have even said? The truth burned. I was just something extra, a side story, a breath between chapters in a life he'd already written. And deep down, I knew. He had young teenage sons, a thriving practice, a respected wife. I had no place in his world, and I never had. It was early spring when that incident happened with Gabe, and by June 1st, I was really sick. I went to the doctor. I was pregnant. The word didn't land all at once. It floated there in the air, waiting for me to catch up. Pregnant. It was easy to pinpoint the date. It had only happened once. And I couldn't pretend the baby was Gary, as I knew this would be a mixed-race child, and it wouldn't certainly not pass in ours. So what do I do? What did I do? I pretended nothing had happened. For 3 months, my growing belly, everyone assumed I was just gaining back weight, back to baggy sweaters and loose scarves. No one asked, no one saw. I blocked it out of my mind until I felt the baby move. And then, just like that, the truth crashed in. Not gently and not symbolically. It crashed in like a storm breaking through glass. I panicked. What would I do? Where would I go? What would people think of me? Well, I found a counselor. Not through church. I found somebody safe and someone neutral. She didn't blink when I told her the truth. She didn't ask if I'd repented. She didn't mention scripture. She just listened, and she asked good questions, and she helped me breathe. And with her help, we made a plan. First, I would tell Gary. Then, I would tell Gabe. Then, I would seek a lawyer. For the first time in weeks, I felt strong, not just for me, for the baby, my baby, a new light inside of me, still fragile, still burning. The plan didn't go well. I told Gary first. He exploded, yelling, cursing, calling me names I never imagined coming from his mouth. Words soaked in fury and betrayal. He demanded details, and I told him everything. I didn't lie. I didn't sugarcoat anything. He stormed out. I didn't know where he went. But soon cars started pulling in our laneway, crowding the front of the house. Gary still hadn't returned when his parents walked in. Then mine, my sisters, a few of his siblings. It was chaos. Yelling, screaming, crying. Accusations across the room fell like knives. Old family wounds flung around as proof, as if that's who I'd always been, apparently. Then Gary came back, and it got worse. So much worse. It all rose in a fever pitch until my body couldn't take it anymore. I passed out. Gone. Out cold on the living room floor. Someone must have called an ambulance. I was whisked away. Alone. No one came with me. At the hospital, I drifted in and out of consciousness as they hooked up monitors and IVs, a cold gel across my belly, an ultrasound screen flickering above me, a soft voice saying, "There's the heartbeat," and as I turned my head away so no one could see me cry.